Well, hello. This morning I'm going to stray into an area which I don't normally make too much comment on in videos, which is politics. But we are in a very important year here in the UK and especially in Scotland, where we've got the Scottish elections happening within less than 100 days' time. And although we live in a part of rural Aberdeenshire where I haven't come across too many people who have decided to vote for reform, or are thinking about voting for reform, I was somewhat alarmed by the fact that there were any, given what reform stands for and what Nigel Farage stands for. But I can understand because I think that what a lot of people are doing is basically going to vote, if you like, as an objection to the way that British politics is happening and um, to the malfunctioning of British politics at the moment. And the reason for that is that we've got this two-party, virtually two-party system, in that what first past the post is only going to favour an either-or, black or white, two-party situation, whereas the Scottish Parliament elections are a little bit better in that we have somewhat hybrid but a different voting system, which allows for more diversity of opinion and different parties having a possibility of and hopefully coming to some sort of a coalition arrangement in the future. But be that as it may, I understand that people are voting for reform largely because they're fed up with both what Labour are doing now and what the Conservatives did in the past, and don't see any future in either of these two. And the radical solutions being offered by Nigel Farage, particularly offering certainties and offering black and white solutions, unfortunately, it makes complex situations that seem so simple, such as, for example, blaming everything on immigration, when in fact the causes of our economic woes are very far from simple. And I won't go into all of that, that's a separate topic. But I just wanted to focus a little bit on what I feel I need to say about Farage. And I mean, there's a lot been written about him, but he's the founder of three political parties, both UKIP, Brexit Party, and now Reform. But they're all built around his personality and ego. And he's basically a Thatcherite nationalist and admirer of Enoch Powell. If those of you who are older will remember how Enoch Powell is basically a racist. And he's very much focused on anti-immigration and an anti-EU stance, of course. And he's associated with a network actually that benefits from division and distrust in institutions, which does raise questions about the influence of money in politics and where it's all coming from. So the Reform Party's policies, despite anti-elite claims, appear to favour the wealthy interests actually more than the poor, raising concerns about actually the transparency of the of what they're saying and the whole whether or not elections are fair. So Farage's populist tactics, his manipulation of media, and of course his potential authoritarian tendencies, which we see in him, will definitely erode democratic norms. And they are similar to those of far-right populist leaders in all sorts of, well, other countries, most notably, of course, Donald Trump in the US, and see what he's doing to the rule of law, both international and national. So Farage embodies a broader authoritarian trend in the democratic countries, targeting minorities, distrusting institutions, and prioritizing culture, what I call culture wars, and supposedly championing the working class without actually doing so. So Farage's disregard for the checks and balances that he seems to be showing, similar to Trump, poses a risk to democracy, potentially leading to weakened institutions, increased disinformation, and a society that's driven by fear and grievance. We're already seeing that. So, as I say, despite claiming to be anti-elite, Reform UK's policies appear to benefit wealthy interests at the expense of workers' rights and NHS protections and fair taxation, which would include fair taxing the rich farm and having a good wealth tax. So Farage exploits the disillusion that many feel with a failing democracy, such as we have in the UK at the moment. And utilizing the algorithm-driven engagement with social media, he prioritizes emotional intensity over accuracy in his posts, and particularly videos. Whereas popular public discourse requires an information environment that discourages misleading framing and inflammatory intent. So, going particularly beyond simple checking. So, I'm going to give you an example. This Farage takes real data, removes it from its context, and adds an inflammatory framing, deploying it for maximum political impact to generate outrage and media attention. And an example of this is Farage's claim about the percentage of pupils in Glasgow schools who have English as a second language. And that was factually accurate. However, Farage presented the statement without a context, implying a negative impact, if you like, what we call the cultural smashing of Glasgow. That's what he was claiming. I think that's what the quote, but without acknowledging the full range of English proficiency among those pupils. So Farage failed to mention that only 4.6% of Glasgow pupils are new to the English language, significantly changing the impact of the statistic. So English as an additional language, pupils in Glasgow actually outperform their English-only peers in school. Over 1,400 Gaelic-speaking children in Glasgow were not targeted by Farage's criticism, so highlighting a racial element to his comments. So the video was actually released strategically before Farage's rally in Falkirk, which aligned the Reform UK's Scottish Parliament, well, it aligned with the beginning of the Reform UK's, the party's Scottish parliamentary election campaign. So the video was released during a week when Farage actually himself faced allegations of anti-Semitic behavior in his youth. So again, diverting attention away. So disinformation such as this in politics breeds division, erodes trust, and enables extreme narratives to thrive. Now, Reform UK's allegations of financial misconduct are there too. Nigel Farage earns a significant side income from various ventures including promoting gold, appearing on media platforms, attending political fundraisers, and faced with the criticism for failing to declare over £380,000 in side income and attributing it to actually personal and administrative errors. So he offered no sincere apologies, followed by excuses and attempts to downplay the seriousness of the situation. So the party relies heavily on donations from a small group of wealthy individuals, which does raise questions about whose interests the party really serves. So, for example, Jeremy Hosking is a fossil fuel investor. He donated 1.7 million to Reform UK, which aligns with the party's stance against zero policies. And incidentally, that's another of the major reasons why I'm worried about him. The climate change is real, and the danger of us not proceeding to net zero is real. And he's following Trump in this at all as well. So another major contributor, Christopher Harborne, is a major cryptocurrency investor, and he donated £9 million to Reform UK, the largest donation from a living donor in British history. And Farage has been publicly advocating for Tether, this cryptocurrency linked to Harborne's financial interests. So it's Tether is also involved, well, has faced allegations of misleading claims about its reserves and facilitating illicit activities. So the cryptocurrency industry, including Tether, is increasingly influencing global politics with significant donations to political campaigns. So Reform UK's cryptocurrency donations raises concerns about potential foreign influence and lack of transparency in British politics. So Nigel Farage is no longer just influencing the political landscape, but has a credible path to power by leveraging the first past the post electoral system and Reform UK's growing popularity. And if he's successful, he has the potential to shape the UK's future direction. So the great danger is that we move towards a fascist nationalism that denies the very values of justice, equality, fraternity, a sense of being part of an international community, of being connected to the whole that this nation needs in order to foster the well-being of all. And Farage openly admires the political style of President Trump and has gained support from people like Elon Musk. Now, if he gains power, he will lead the UK in the same direction. What Trump did in Venezuela illustrates how quickly democratic norms can erode when leaders disregard accountability, justifying actions with vague justifications and exploiting uncertainty to gain control. The killing of an unarmed US citizen by ICE agents, and another one just recently during mass deportation operation, highlights the dangers of unaccountable power. So the Trump administration's attempt to portray the victim as violent underscores the need for transparency and accountability. US immigration policy has led to armed force with excessive power, resulting in violence against both undocumented migrants and ordinary citizens. So the US situation serves as a warning for Britain, where similar anti-immigration rhetoric and calls for increased state power could actually lead to authoritarianism. So we need a properly functioning democracy to ensure power is challenged and not abused. Disagreement is a necessary feature. A functioning democracy will ensure accountable power, prevent intimidation, and promote a society where reasoned arguments prevail over falsehoods. However, in the UK, we don't have a proper functioning democracy. First past the post is an electoral system that favours minority rule. That's what's happened with the vast Labour majority on a minority election result. Inadequate rules governing how political parties are financed allows dark money to influence politics. And an algorithm-driven social media spreads disinformation, threatening rational public discourse. Both electoral reform and campaign finance reform are needed. We need to change our first past the post electoral system to that of a proportional representation, and even Scotland needs to go that direction in future more fully. We need financial rules for political parties that cap donations, bans high-risk funding, and ensures transparency to prevent undue influence in politics. We need to ban cryptocurrency donations and insist on greater transparency in political funding. We need tighter rules on second jobs, stronger enforcement, and real transparency over money in politics. And we need tighter rules for social media platforms. So please think twice before voting for ILO reform.